Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and our Infinity Saga rewatch left us with a 360-degree God view of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And thank God I can't pivot this camera 360 degrees because these blue dungeon walls are coated in yarn and trivia notes and sexy doodles, other stuff that wouldn't pass a black light test. But as we've been trying to extend this Marvel timeline further into the future, I realized something is off. A tinfoil suspicion that our reality is not what it should be. That some inflection point derailed us from our rightful destiny into this darkest timeline that we now find ourselves in. Now, yes, that also applies to the, outside world, but I'm only certified to discuss fictional cinematic universes. 1 year ago, Kevin Feige announced Marvel's Phase 4 plan, kicking off with stories like Black Widow and Falcon Winter Soldier on Disney+. And we're all like, yeah, cool, but we just saw Far From Home with what seemed to be pretty clear Fantastic Four Easter eggs. So like, where the is the Fantastic Four? Where's Doom? Where's the mutants? Where's Galactus? We know you got them.
Little cameo, little Galactus cameo in there.
Yeah, with 1 year of history to look back on it, I think we can now identify the trajectory of the MCU, and there was no way the announced Phase 4 plan was the original plan. Everything we've seen tells us that the studio had a very different timeline mapped out, but they had to abandon it after one event changed everything. And I'm not talking about social distancing related delays, those are part of it, but the real inflection points are always less obvious. Like Biff being given the sports almanac by his older self before they, made out in his car. Let's suit up in quantum nanotech and boost up with orange slices as we explore Marvel's abandoned timeline. Okay, let's rewind the clock back 6 years to 2014. The most important year for Marvel Studios because it reached a critical nexus crossroads. See, in 2014, Marvel released its two best films, Captain America: The Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. Both game changers in different ways that gave the studio two diverging narrative paths forward within which to set up their upcoming stories in Phase 3. I will call these paths the Bucky path and the Rocket path. The Bucky path was introduced in Captain America: Winter Soldier, directed by the Russo brothers and written by Marcus and McFeely, whom I have nicknamed Eminem because they kind of look like those guys. And I realize that has confused some of you via auto-generated subtitles. Folks, I would never blame Endgame's plot holes on Marshall Mathers. That man was miles ahead of us on the stand curve. Now, I call it the Bucky path because Bucky's return in Winter Soldier locked in the MCU's interconnectivity, history, and fan service flavor. Like his rage over the lies he's been told, his inner conflict between his tech and his soul. These are the themes embraced by all Earthbound MCU stories that followed. Civil War, Homecoming, Black Panther, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Endgame, Far From Home. When you rewatch them, it's actually weird how much screen time Bucky gets in these movies. It's almost as if Marvel is using him as a grounding force to remind us what planet we're on. Now, the Rocket path was introduced in James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy. And I call it that because more than the others, Rocket represents the whole identity crisis of all of these stories. In a vast cosmos and an endless multiverse, who are you? Why do you matter? Doctor Strange, Guardians Volume 2, Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War. These stories showcase broken freaks wandering the universe in pursuit of a connection and a purpose. Now, the Bucky path has been defined by realism. All of its marvels are grounded in Terran ingenuity, like Stark Tech, Pym Tech, Wakandan Tech. The Rocket path has been defined by its absurdism. It's not always explained. The wizardry is magical, spiritual, cosmic, Lovecraftian, or Douglas Adams-esque. It all comes from Asgardian or celestial origins. Now, these two paths crossed in Infinity War. The precise moment the magical Asgardian Bifrost delivered Rocket directly into the path of the soil of Wakanda, the setting that Bucky had spent all of his time in.
Get some! Come on, get some! How much for the arm? Oh, I'll get that arm.
Now, Phase 3 took Marvel firmly down the Bucky path, opening with the Russo-directed Civil War with Bucky at the center of that story, and then culminating in Endgame, in which Bucky allowed his fellow soldier to finally retire. That was the closing shot of that film. But all signs pointed to the Rocket path being the way forward afterward in Phase 4, until it wasn't. So what happened? Well, before I continue, thanks to Bang Energy for sponsoring this video. Every can of Bang is 16 ounces, it contains 300 milligrams of caffeine, it's sugar-free, and has 0 calories, and it tastes great with over 20 different flavors to choose from. One of those great flavors is pina colada. It tastes like that song that I would sing, but we don't have the rights to it. You know, about that married couple that cheat on each other, but with each other, and somehow that makes their marriage better. You get that full pina colada flavor without your marriage falling apart. And hey, it picks you up with energy. Energy you could actually use to, you know, fix your marriage with your spouse. Check out Bang on Instagram. You can get 25% off your order at bang-energy.com when you use the code NEWROCKSTARS25. There you can buy cans of Bang Energy, including their sweet tea or keto coffee flavors. You can also get clothing, fitness supplements, all kinds of stuff to be your best Bang self. And again, thanks to Bang Energy for sponsoring this video. Get 25% off at bang-energy.com using the code NEWROCKSTARS25. Okay, while Marvel Phase 3 stuck more to the Bucky path, you could sense that the MCU was ready to break free of Earth's atmosphere into the rocket path.
Okay, who here hasn't been to space?
Rocket and his fellow Asgardians of the Galaxy were clearly the future of the cinematic universe. And then right after this, Far From Home ended with Nick Fury, the man always with one foot in reality, now barefoot in space. So why would Marvel then open Phase 4 with a Winter Soldier style spy thriller like Black Widow, a character most of us associate with being dead, immediately followed by another Bucky story in Falcon Winter Soldier? Well, it is because we are in the wrong timeline, folks. Feige's original plan was to kick off Phase 4 not with Black Widow, but with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in May 2020. James Gunn's script was mostly finished, the movie was set to start production, and its release would have been followed by Black Widow either in July 2020 or November 2020. After the Russos moved on from their Marvel contracts, James Gunn and Taika Waititi were set up to take their place as Marvel's go-to storytellers, expanding the MCU to even wider limits, tying in long-anticipated yet admittedly a bit absurd figures like Galactus and Silver Surfer, while Far From Home set up Nick Fury overseeing Sword in Earth's orbit, introducing the Fantastic Four, who almost certainly seem to be the new occupants of Avengers Tower, now probably the Baxter Building in that movie, with, yeah, Dr. Doom probably being the ruler of that subatomic city that they hid in the quantum realm in Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's Dr. Doom's story in the classic Fantastic Four comics. And that's why this is not really theory at this point, it's really just the obvious roadmap that Marvel was laying for themselves. Because, you know, as shocking as Thanos' snap or Mysterio's bad guy-ness were, those twists were really just pulled directly from their best-known comic storylines. More often than not, Marvel sticks to the script written for them in the comics. So yeah, this was our original Phase 4 timeline, along with all the other great titles announced at Comic-Con last year, but with more of a clear direction forward. And that would set up the future return to the Bucky path of Earthbound stories like Blade, like the mutants in Phase 5. The inflection point that derailed this plan came late in Phase 3, right as these plans were coming together. In July 2018, without warning, an online hit campaign rose up against James Gunn, pressuring Disney to fire him, which they did, until months later when they realized the whole thing was stupid and they rehired him. But it was too late! James Gunn already signed on to direct the Suicide Squad for Warner Brothers, and the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 cast scheduled other projects, and then suddenly Marvel Studios was without its big cosmic universe expanding kickoff to Phase 4. They could no longer launch the future with a crossover story to introduce the dream titles that Feige long sought and finally reacquired from Fox. And so the plan changed. Guardians Volume 3 would be pushed beyond 2022, an insane 6-year gap, longer than the gap between any other MCU sequel series. And now Phase 4 would lead off with Black Widow and Falcon Winter Soldier, more Bucky path stories that probably won't venture off-world or off-reality, leading that rocket path to later titles like WandaVision, Loki, Multiverse of Madness, Love and Thunder. Now the good news is, this changed timeline now means we might get cool Earthbound stories like Secret Invasion, rebooted Mutants, Blade a bit sooner than we would have. Like sure, in a different life we should have had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 by now. But absent of that, there's room for Marvel to explore one of the best comic storylines in the MCU. Now, of course, the timeline just went up and changed again, so now we're not gonna get anything to the fall. Who knows what reality we're living in? Just remember, they can't move all this stuff around super easily. It's a super connected cinematic universe. Each story opens the door and paves the way for the next chapter. So bearing this in mind, the imagination runs wild with the possibilities of what a Guardians 3-led Phase 4 could have looked like in that abandoned timeline, you know, if Twitter wasn't so stupid. Hey, which type of MCU film do you prefer? The Bucky-type Earthbound stories or the Rocket-type cosmic stories? Comment down below, follow me on Instagram at Erik Voss, follow me Rockstars, and subscribe for breakdowns of everything you love. Thanks for watching.
Boom, you looking for this?
Erik. That is my name.